Welcome to Real Flix Reviews, or like a book club for people who hate reading. This month we're doing horror, so Ryan picked the movie Let the Right One In, made in 2008. And we bring you movie news. This week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, and Rob Charney.
The old guys.
So here's the description of this movie, and apparently it was made in Sweden. It says, Oscar, an overlooked and bullied boy, finds love and revenge through Ellie, a beautiful but peculiar girl.
Peculiar.
Close enough.
This is what happens when you hate reading.
I don't hate reading. I just hate books. Kidding. Like I said, the first thing I noticed about this movie, honestly, was the visuals.
Yeah.
This movie is a very visually striking movie.
Yeah. I wanted to say I was actually impressed by that description that they had there. A very succinct but accurate description.
I think this is the first or second time we've run into that.
Yeah, it's not very often. Good job, whoever that user was.
Well, then they managed to do it in one sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
3 commas. But
Yeah.
one sentence.
That's still a sentence.
Kind of.
It is.
But I loved the visuals on this were amazing. The stark contrast on everything.
Yeah, I liked how when they went dark, it was dark.
Oh, yeah.
It was very, very dark. And was it me or did the daytime seem a little like overcast throughout the film?
And I think it had a lot to do with it. It felt like it was in their winter time.
Yeah.
Of course, which would make it.
Well, there's like tons of snow everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you don't know how much they usually get because it wasn't like it was piled up to the windows, but it was, and the pond wasn't completely frozen, was it?
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't completely in the winter.
Now, I got one thing to point out to you guys, and it was one of the things I was wanting to bring up. This was a film that, as Ryan said, not the American version, but the actual European or overseas version. Now, the issue was, because this happened multiple films at this time, around this time when these films were being released, there was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, there was Old Boy, and this film was one of the ones that made it, and America decided to change it a little bit. Did this film seem like it wasn't made for American audiences? This is really what I want to point out.
Well,
I definitely
the
don't.
way they did it.
Yeah.
Part of it, I think, and I'll be honest, I don't watch a whole lot of movies from where this is from, but the pacing is definitely not like an American movie.
Yeah.
Unless you go very art house, maybe indie, where this one was slow, and it wasn't. Most American movies are like bang, 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 bang. This movie was bang.
It was
Bang.
very slow.
But
very
what
slow
I
in
wanted to
motion.
point out was, it was slow, but there were times where, for me, it intrigued me enough on the way that they told this story, is because what they wanted to portray, as far as what I got out of it, is that Oscar, because I'm not going to try to butcher his name, the kid who played Oscar, he was portraying this downtrodden, underfoot kid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
And would you guys walk outside if you were downtrodden and that little kid in your tidy whities in the snow?
Yeah.
And a jacket?
See, the part.
No.
The one thing that kind of I wanted to see what you guys thought was his lack of parents. I mean, his parents were there, but his mother must have worked full time, or was only in a couple episodes.
Like an only parent.
There was no father.
Yeah, there was no father.
But see, I thought he went to his father's place when he went up to the snow, where there was that snow bike.
Yeah, there was something there. I don't know what it was.
Okay,
though.
we
but
can't,
as far as I
right.
knew,
it felt like there was no father in the picture anyway.
His mom was it, and he
Even
really
she
didn't
wasn't
have
very much.
anyone in charge of him.
Right.
Yeah.
Really.
Because he went around sticking poor innocent trees with knives.
Yeah, I mean, his acting out was a little bit like, you're gonna be a serial killer, dude.
Yeah, it did feel like he was going to have some issues. There's no doubt about it.
This actually goes straight into our main character. That is she really introduced Ellie like a very kind of flash in the pan. I mean, not physically, just in one scene and then out the next.
Yeah.
And that to me was intriguing because the first scene did not explain anything, which most vampire movies, off the bat, it is.
Yeah, they don't treat you like you're a 5-year-old child that needs everything explained to you in this film.
That was one of my favorite parts because reading the description, I knew what she was, but it was like this is impressive. They don't lead it. They make you kind of figure it out.
I have a little bit of a disconnect with this movie because I was trying to figure out. She's supposed to be a vampire.
Yes.
And according to the information, she's supposedly like 200 years old.
Or 300. Yeah.
Who was the man that was getting the blood for her?
This is.
Yeah.
I have a theory. About this.
Well, okay. I want to hear John's theory because I have one
See,
as well.
my theory is he was like Oscar.
Yes, that's what my take on this was.
Meaning,
She
That-
finds. You go.
Well, okay. My understanding of this film, and I've seen this film multiple times, is that she befriended the old man, like she did Oscar, and through the relationship, he fell in love with her to the point that he would do anything for her, and she needed blood and needed sustenance, so he went out and got that blood and sustenance. That's the man.
okay, so
And Oscar is going to be taking that role after
After a while.
Yeah, after a while. That's kind of was my take, and that's how she survived for this long.
So she finds somebody close to her physical age and ages, although she never ages. The companion ages, and then now he's in charge of finding blood for her.
Yeah. Because I was,
Okay.
because as soon as the one scene I guess was a key was when he died. It was like the old guy that was killing people. It's like when he died. It's like okay, now I get this is what Oscar's gonna do. I was kind of hoping it was gonna go in a different direction. That was like because I think that would be really cool because it's supposedly a love story, according to IMDb, and it's not really a love story. It's more like he's being used.
Yeah, yeah, but used willingly, and I think he seemed like a type of kid who wasn't dumb. So
Yeah.
I'm sure he would know what was going on and that he was going to be taking up this mantle, if you want to call it that, of his experience.
Yeah, I was a little foggy on that whole thing, but
But now I want to get
you
to my favorite scene of the movie
All right.
when he's in the pool scene.
Right.
Oh, this is towards the end.
The way
I love
the
this
way
scene.
they portrayed that and the way that they did the filming and the cinematography of cutting kind of the way they did, and I use that term
Body
properly.
parts.
Yeah, body parts coming in.
yeah.
That was just really cool, and you kind of find yourself cheering.
Yeah.
Or at least I did.
I was hoping more we could see what it was.
Yeah,
doing.
that's
what I was.
that's what I was a
hoping
little
for. I
bummed
wanted
out.
to see it.
I thought they kind of highlighted kind of what her powers or strength or whatever when you saw these legs, flying
Yeah.
past them. It's like, how was she doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
And talking about that, I kind of wanted to talk about the lore they use in this movie because they use lore that at least I'd say the last 10, maybe 20 years is not 100% traditional. Like she has to be invited into the home.
Right.
The last time I remember that was the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Yeah. No, that's been used
Really? Well, which one? 'Cause,
before.
like it's been used before, but it's not
They
it's
used
not
it
traditional or common.
pretty much all the way through True Blood.
Well, I haven't seen True Blood, so.
Let's see.
Well, it was
it's
not
been
in any
used
of
recently.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
like,
okay.
I'd say
So
it's not common. though, I would say
No,
traditional.
None of the Stoker versions.
No,
of
yeah,
anything
the Bram
like-
Stoker's never had that.
Never had that.
And I don't think either did Interview with a Vampire either.
No,
No,
I
I
don't
don't remember.
believe so.
I don't think so. I don't think it was used.
I'm pretty certain there wasn't that in the interview, and I don't think there was in Blade either. Any of the Blades.
No, see, I was actually
So-
going to say that she can't stand sunlight, unlike Blade or the Twilight movies. She doesn't
Well,
sparkle.
Blade.
Was a daywalker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Blade. Yeah, he had his things going on. But
And the other thing I thought was interesting was cats didn't like her. She was like the
Yeah.
mummy from
That-
the Mummy movie.
yeah, yeah,
Brendan
yeah.
and
Fraser.
that's not something that was.
That was new. To
No,
me.
that's not really new. It's
No, what I remember
Oh,
in
to
other
you.
movies, yeah,
Okay,
to me,
sorry.
what I remember in other movies from cats would react, but they'd run away, not attack.
Yeah.
It was a different. I thought it was a different take on it.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is because when we get into films that are that cross borders or are outside of the U.S., we get into some interesting lore, and we experienced that with Rare Exports as one that had some interesting takes on some Americanized viewpoints. So this one also has some of those things, and I actually enjoy those. They're nice little things that you're like, huh. And that's
A
not
different
something I'm
take.
accustomed to.
Yeah, no, I actually, yeah, I like the kind of twists, the lore that the versions of it I'm not used to. Like the cats thing was, to me, it was one of the stranger ones because I don't think I've seen like that type of reaction
Where a cat is.
attacking a vampire.
Well,
but
I
there-
don't remember a movie that used a cat scene at that long a length.
Yeah,
In how the cats were
'cause
reacting.
in my notes, the only movie that I can think of that has a scene kind of resembling that was in the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser, where cats were like the guardian of hell or something like that, and he didn't like cats.
And I would say, most of the things that we encounter with vampires is there is some creature that is hostile towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rob said, most of the time they choose to back away or get
Right.
out of the situation
They're the smarter
rather than
ones.
being like, I'm just going to jack you up.
Yeah,
And
most
Yeah.
of the time
we
the
could take that
cats
in.
act like they're the master.
Yeah.
The vampire's the master.
Yeah, we could take that in a couple different ways. It could just be that cat's personality.
So the other part of the lore was becoming a vampire on bite, not
yeah.
like some of the more in-depth one where they have to give blood back.
Yeah.
Or they become a thrall or a
And
zombie
that-
or
Now,
something.
none of her victims that she actually bit. Oh, but the lady,
blood,
the
'cause
one
she-
lady, right?
She broke the neck of all of her victims, like
Yeah.
before they could change.
Yeah,
She was that lady was the only one she couldn't do it because she was discovered before it was too late.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was that one was an interesting one, and because, like you said, that is something that we've transitioned out of as far as America goes, because that was the predominant lore beforehand, and I think Interview was the one that really changed that one. I think Interview was the one that, if I remember right, it was the one that was where you had to partake in the actual vampire's blood. So that would be what was it, Rice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can't remember
and
her
also-
first name right.
And
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
Anne
And
Rice,
the
yeah.
latest vampire Dracula movie was the same way. You actually had to take in the blood, swallow the blood in order to become a vampire.
Yeah. So
That's the latest one that came out a couple of years ago.
yeah, I haven't seen it recently. I haven't seen it yet, but also anyway, yeah. So that's something that was interesting as well. But as far as the kids acting go, they did an amazing job. As far as I could tell.
Which kid?
And I
Because I
think-
thought the girl Ellie did a good job. The boy I wouldn't say it was not a good job, but it definitely wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. I would say it wasn't a great job, but I also would say it's not a bad job. It
What do you
seemed kind
think
of
he
fair to
didn't do?
middling.
What do you think that didn't match up? Because the character he's trying to portray is, just a 12-year-old kid who does not fit in and is picked on all the time.
Well, that's it. I mean, I guess I'd say is how hard would that be to act?
Well, if you're not accustomed to that, it
Yeah,
could be very hard.
I guess I'll give you
Because
that.
I mean, the kid, I'll have to look up.
his personality may have been very similar. Very
He was
quiet.
actually 12.
Yeah, he may have been very quiet anyway and shy little guy. And they took advantage of those characteristics in him and had him portrayed kind of awkward like he was.
Yeah.
And
I think the only time that I can think of where he overplayed the role was when he was sitting outside right after he met Ellie. He was sitting out there and he was kind of just not really. It was like he was throwing a little fit, and I don't think he played that properly.
Was that before the Rubik's Cube scene?
I think so, yeah. But that was the only time that I would say that I thought his acting wasn't what it should have been. Because, like I said, it's a hard, difficult role to play because everybody is going to interpret it differently.
No, true. And
Especially at 12, because both these kids were...
Kids.
I say kids. They're 19 now, but they both were that age that they were portraying, 12, 13.
And being
Right.
that age in front of a camera is not easy. The one thing I would say, doing some research about this movie, it was originally apparently a book, and Ellie apparently was actually a boy in the book who was castrated,
Oh, jeez.
according to what I read. And so
So it was
apparently
a
that was
choir boy.
Yeah, pretty much. As they say, that's the reason why in the book he was described as a boy with a high voice.
Oh my goodness. Poor guy.
which I
The
thought was
vampire and castrated for all that.
Yeah.
and I
In
thought
12.
and I thought that was an interesting way to
That's sick.
to keep parts of the book, as far as the high pitched voice, a few things, and I thought it was an interesting change.
And I mean, it was a girl, but she's 12 at that time. So
Yeah.
other than the private area, you're not going to know that she wasn't a boy.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of a clever, like,
Yeah.
Well, remember she answered, that she wasn't a girl.
yeah, but she wasn't. But at that point, she wasn't saying she wasn't a boy either. She was
Well,
saying she
but
just
she-
wasn't really human. Was kind of
Yeah.
Well,
what
I
she
don't know.
meant to.
Now
Yeah.
with what James said, it makes me look back at it and go, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of questioning that because
Maybe it wasn't really a girl. I
there
mean,
was that one point where she
Yeah, yeah.
disrobed.
Yeah.
I kind of took it more as I'm not human.
Well, I did too.
I did too the first time, but I
until
didn't.
James said what he said. And
Well,
then
I
went-
didn't know that information
Okay.
about the book. I knew it was a book. I just didn't read the book.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting.
that is an interesting take on it. I wouldn't have thought about that without knowing it and reading the book.
And I read that in a couple of different areas, and I'm assuming it's correct. So I haven't actually read the book. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us have, but now we have two looks at the same movie, like
Yeah.
just changing the gender.
Yeah, because like I said, I mean, if you really think about it, they probably cast her as a girl because at that puberty stage,
It makes
right
more
there,
sense.
It's
Yeah.
easier to go with a girl with
Right.
a high pitched voice than finding a boy who isn't voice cracking and changing.
Right.
And I also think it, movie-wise, I think it played better to most audiences having a girl
Yeah.
boy than boy.
Yeah, that would probably not go over very well with part of the American audience having that.
I wouldn't know in the European audience. And you said
Yeah.
there's an American version of this.
There
is
is
it
an
called
American
the same
version.
thing?
Yeah, it is.
'Cause I've never actually seen the American one.
It's something similar. I can't remember the exact title, but it wasn't the exact same.
Oh, was it Let Me In?
Yeah, I think that was probably it. Yes,
So-
Let Me In.
It was funny. The funniest thing about this, if you look on IMDb, it says movies more like this. And the first one is Let Me In, but then it goes to The Orphanage, Rosemary's Babies,
Yeah.
Wreck, Record, The Descendants, the others. They're not even close to like this movie.
No, Let Me In is the American version. That's what it was. I knew the title changed a little bit, but yeah, I was not interested in seeing it because I liked this one. I didn't need to see an American version that was. It's like the remake of The Shining. I like the original one. The one that was made after that in the early '90s was just garbage comparison. So I don't
Wow.
like doing that.
Hit Girl is in this movie on the in the American version.
Yeah, I knew that.
See that was that's
2010.
interesting, but
That was
yeah,
2
it
years
is.
after this one was released.
So
Anyways, let's get down to the ratings. What do you guys think of this one? I'm curious. 'Cause
this movie is. I have a feeling I'm gonna give it a better rating than the old guy. So
you never know.
I would be shocked. I'll be completely honest.
I was shocked last week.
I'm gonna keep shocking you guys.
I'll give this movie a 3 to 5. It was a little slow in parts for me. But overall, there was stuff that was interesting. It was the stark contrast to American movies, which I really love the difference, and the fact that people really matched the atmosphere. Everybody was kind of cold, and
Yeah.
overall I liked it. So 3 out of 5. I don't know if I'll watch it again, but 3 out of 5. Rob?
Gonna leave it up to me. You don't want to leave me last?
Yes, I want
You
to.
can be last. I know.
Yeah, leave me last. Go ahead.
Okay. James?
Now, I want to say something to the audience out there. When we pick horror flicks, we're not looking for jump out, scare me flicks. We're looking
torture
for
porn.
good stories that have a little bit of a twist that can be from, I guess you would say, the darker side of things like vampires, werewolves, ghosts, things like that
Witches.
fall into the horror category that are not just scare me to death movies. And as far as for me, this one, I like the story. I like the take of the vampires. I think the acting for the age group that they picked was, stellar for the age group because they have some difficult roles to pull off. And I give it a 4. I think this one surprised me when I first came across it.
So, Rob, I'm truly dying to know
I'm
this.
gonna go on the opposite way of the way James went with it. To be honest with you, I think that the script itself and the storyline, although to a certain degree it was okay, I really think it was very weak. I think some of the scenes themselves were, because he was so quiet in the quiet scenes, it lost my attention very easily. The soundtrack was virtually non-existent.
I don't even remember much music.
That's exactly
at all.
right.
I was just going to ask you.
There was
that.
none, as far as I can. I remember of that.
I was thinking there might have been some on the clock at some point.
and just some of the
radio.
acting itself. I mean, as an example of one, the boy that got his ear smacked by him, and his older brother comes to this pool, and there's this community pool with absolutely no supervision, and this older brother comes storming in, telling everybody to leave. I had a little problem with that too. I mean, this the whole idea that they would have a pool with children that young and not some supervision, and an older brother.
Now we coming to kill this kid.
Yeah, and now we got a psycho older brother added into this mix here, because obviously he wants to use a knife and he wants to cut the kid up. He must be psycho, so he's got a problem too, which is thrown in the mix. So I'm going, wait a minute, there's just the plot didn't work for me. So with that said. Even though there were some great scenes, I will say there were a couple scenes in it I thought that were excellent. I'm only going to give this one a 2.
I'll be honest, that's higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Yeah, because I know you are not into the European flicks at all, and that's kind of the way they pace their films, is what I've come across. If we get over into the Asian type of genre, they're more fast-paced, but when we get into the European flicks, Norwegian, Scandinavian, Swedish, I'll take that back. I was going to lump French in with them too, but most of the French action flicks are pretty sped up. But that's really what I found is when I'm watching those, even the TV of their area, it's slower stories. They want to draw it out and they want you to try to fall in love with the characters. I think.
I have to say though, like, it is really nice occasionally to get a movie that's not so boom, 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 that gives you a little bit of time to digest everything. For me, this movie was a little slow. Like, if it went a little faster, or it was, wasn't 117 minutes, I think it'd be better. But overall, I liked it.
I did not critique the pace, although I thought the pace was slow. I did not critique that. I understood that part.
Well, I thought you did say that it lost you at parts with the slowness.
But there were scenes that lost me. That just didn't make sense in the story itself. But the pacing, some of it was slow, but that wasn't the critique. I can take slow pacing. But in this case, I just thought there were too many problems with the movie in
now,
general.
if the audience out there really wants to know what I think is a twisted horror flick, go watch a Serbian film. And for those of you that don't think you could take it, don't watch it.
What's it called?
A Serbian film.
Okay.
Don't watch that
Just want to make sure. And then with that, we're going to switch off the House of Cards, and that's James.
So I don't know why he keeps throwing me in on this one.
Because I
still have not
Chapter
fallen.
5.
It is Chapter 5. I still have not fallen in love with this
Right
flick.
under the bus.
But I did say to Jen 2 episodes ago, my wife, I predicted how the story is going to play out in this film, and it's following along with what my prediction was. The guy, is he a senator?
Yeah.
Congressman.
He's a congressman.
Okay. Congressman. Guy that did the drugs, Paul.
I don't
Anyways,
keep track of the names.
He got himself in more trouble. And I gotta say, I did enjoy Kevin Spacey just turning that little thing and saying, come with me. Puts him in the bath, gives him aspirin, hands him a razor blade and said, if you can't keep it up, do it right. Yeah. Don't mess around, do it
Cut
right.
it the long way.
Yeah, cut it the
long way.
long
Not an amateur way.
Yeah. I thought that was a well-played scene for this one because that's the mentality of that guy.
Well, I found, what I like about it is some of the unique ideas that he comes up with. His ability to manipulate people and to manipulate a situation. His wife's, in this case, she had a fundraiser that the unions were stopping.
Was pretty cool.
Okay, he said, fine, we'll do it out in front of the hotel. I mean, he came up with, he knew how to raise money.
That was his wife, actually.
It was a very political.
No, she asked him to do it. She told him to get the ball rolling. You know people, you do it. And he turn the phone calls on,
And he did it.
He just did it.
Yeah, and so, were you a fan of the West Wing?
No, I haven't watched that one.
So
I haven't watched any episodes.
I do like this kind of political intrigue, manipulation, the way things are probably closer to what really goes on in government. Sorry to say, but I think there's some insider type things in these storylines, and I just love the character with Kevin Spacey, and I love the first person where he's looking at the camera, talking, describing, and then it'll roll right into the scene, and so for me, I enjoy it.
I find it interesting that even his marriage is not really a marriage. It's more. It's just
a business.
It's a means to the
business
end.
arrangement. Yeah, I think James is right. Yeah.
It seems like a business arrangement, but I like the fact that she is doing her best to stay faithful to it.
How many seasons did this go? You guys
Right
I
now
think
it's
there's
on
5.
There's 5. So
No,
we're
I think
only,
there's
On
2.
Netflix, I came across like 5.
I know there's at least 3 because I saw
Really?
one that said 3.
Yeah,
I'll
I
have
think
to take a
there's
look
like
then.
something like that. It's
But-
quite a bit.
but- well,
The reason
James-
I ask is because I'm wondering how, as we continue to go down this road with this series, how it matures. That's what I want to see.
4. I'm wrong. Sorry.
4 seasons. Okay.
Well, I
I knew
actually,
it was more than 3.
yeah. Okay.
I do know a little bit just because you can't avoid hearing people talk about it. Like
You
Well,
know,
I'm sorry
without-
I missed it.
without
I-
spoiling.
Somehow I avoided
Yeah,
everybody
I
talking
missed
about
it too, and I don't know why.
we're gonna switch off.
We're going to watch
to,
chapter 6 too.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna watch chapter
Chapter
6
6.
for movie news. Just gonna let you know, everybody, we do have a Facebook page. You love us, hate us. We might rejoin air. How about donating a little cash to Old Guy Tech TV to keep the lights on? A little
Whatever
pause
it
for the
is.
cause. Pay me enough to help me to actually say this correctly. And we're going to movie news, and I think James has
Some of the
some.
speech
So-
school.
Do you guys remember a little while ago I came up with a 2-film thing that we watched? I'm trying to actually pull it up.
Excuse me.
It was like Neverland, I believe it was the name of it.
Yeah.
And
The one about Peter Pan and kind of how we
think-
got there.
jeez, I'm
Right.
finding like the same one. Yeah, it was that one. I can't remember the name of it.
With
I
Bob
think it was
Hoskins
Neverland.
playing Shmi again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been an easier way to look at it. Just pull up Bob Hopkins. Duh.
Rest in
Anyways,
peace.
the film that's being released, what month are we? April? May,
Oh,
like
yeah.
2 months.
Yeah. Pan.
It got really like beaten down, I guess, on their early release.
Really?
It's
That's
the one with Hugh Jackman, Levi Miller, Jimmy V, those guys. And this is a precursor type thing of the Pan lore. But I was reading it, and that kind of really bums me out because I liked what they did with the Neverland thing, that 2-part thing that Sci-Fi did a little while back. Were you part for that one?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
It was pre-me.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know if you were filling in or something.
Not
for
that
time. But I actually enjoyed that one, and I was really hoping that this one would be similar to that because the things I saw on it were pretty similar to it. But from what I understand, it got kind of chopped down.
Was it the acting that got? Do you know, or is it the
It's
story
just
itself?
a rough
or?
takeoff, is what everybody's saying, and it's
Well,
tied
I
into
mean, 2
it's
months
tied
to
into
go.
Finding Neverland as well.
See, I'm really curious in like what take it is. Is it closer to Peter Pan being a butcherer, like you hear people talk about in the story?
I don't
Is
think
it-
it's a dark one. I think
'cause-
this is Peter Pan as a young kid, and if I'm looking at what I see, I believe that Hugh Jackman is going to be like the Captain Hook character. Young Captain Hook hasn't quite got his chops yet.
He's
type
going to be
thing.
hard to be a young Captain Hook. Jackman,
That's
Yeah,
a bummer.
He's getting old.
he's
what?
in his 40s now.
Is he in his
Yeah,
40s?
I think so.
'Cause I'd love
46.
To see,
You're right.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a more brutal Peter Pan. Because there's you hear stories or people talking about
Well,
like he kills Lost Boys
well,
once they
The
get older.
one that
and-
came out with the Peter Pan lore, I'm trying to remember, is that show, Once Upon a Time.
yeah.
Jen was into that, and we were watching it for a while, and their version of Peter Pan was like that. He was a bad kid.
It was a
And
murderer.
Captain Hook was actually not so bad of a guy. He wasn't
Yeah.
a very upstanding guy, but he was trying to help people
Well, but-
against this evil Peter Pan character.
With 2 months to go prior to launch, this movie can completely change.
It really
You know,
can.
it can. I mean, so who knows? Maybe the idea was let's do a pre-launch and see what they think of this version, and all of a sudden, okay, we're going to switch up.
But I've been a real big fan of Hugh Jackman's career. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
have.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
liked what he's come out
Oh, the
with.
man's so damn talented, it's ridiculous. I mean, he
Yeah.
does everything. Sings, dance, acts. I mean, he does
Yeah,
everything.
he has a really, really great arsenal of things that he can pull out.
I mean, he's been on Broadway. He's been doing Broadway for a long
And
time.
another guy that I'm going to bring up who I was not a fan of for a long time until I saw Beautiful Mind is Russell Crowe's new movie is coming up. Sorry, I had the release date. Is it already out?
What is it?
Oh, the 2014. Yeah, The Water Diviner.
I haven't even heard of this.
I hadn't even heard
You
of it
guys
either.
haven't heard of this one? I heard about this one, and
It's Russell Crowe?
yeah, it's Russell Crowe as well.
I sure have a mixed feeling on Russell
And
Crowe.
it
but,
was released on Christmas. That's right. Okay, I knew it was recently that it came out.
Did it,
came out.
what was
coming
the IMDb rating out of
The
curiosity?
IMDb rating of this one is 7.4.
Well, then,
But
might be worth seeing.
But what he was saying is now that he's a dad, he's been it was really tough for him to get this script out because what the story is, he's an Australian man in Turkey after the Battle of Gallipoli, and he's looking for his 3 sons who are missing, who are part of it, and it sounds like it could be
I
a
remember
very
something
interesting
about this
story.
movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned
It
that.
snuck underneath my radar of being released, but there was so many movies I was trying to keep my eye on during Christmas.
You know, it's really too bad that there isn't some movie mogul out there that can't just stumble across RFR. Let us see a few pre-release movies and let us go. The
Yeah,
opinion,
I would love to
I mean,
see some of these.
we would be really happy to do something like that. And then what I really like is that the guys that go out there that do watch our show, about the only thing you can do is give some kind of stupid critique instead of just being real about stuff. So I
That's the
mean, this is
internet.
just our opinion. It is the internet. Yeah, so you can hide behind your fake name there if you want. But we're here.
What's the interesting thing about both movies? There's not a lot of actors or actresses in this movie that I recognize. Is there anybody you recognize?
And Diviner?
Well, either one. Besides, the big name people.
And what movie?
Besides the big name people,
Like
no.
Pan
And
or
I like
The
to
Water
give
Diviner.
these guys a chance. I like to give people that are trying to make their chops in the acting career. I like to give them their chance to come out and do something and impress me. And if they do, I'll pick up their name probably about the 4th time I see them do something good.
Or like, I recognize this guy.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, next week is the old
My
guy's
pick.
pick.
So,
what are you picking?
I had a little difficulty going. I had all kinds of ideas and all kinds of directions I was going to go into, and I thought of this movie a number of times, and only because to me, it's a 1987 classic. It's called The Witches of Eastwick. And if you haven't seen it, it's Jack Nicholson at his best. And who doesn't love Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, back in the 80s and 70s.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
man.
it was great. I almost did The Shining, of course. But this one is particularly interesting because the interaction between Cher and Susan Sarandon and Michelle Pfeiffer are just incredible. Those three, along with Jack
I
Nicholson.
completely forgot Cher was in this movie.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very interesting movie, and so that's what we're gonna do.
It's a
So-
classic one.
So I gave the movie Let the Right One In a 3 to 5. James gave it a 4 to 5. Rob gave it a 2 to 5. Ryan gave it a I'm not here. And next week is
You'll
chapter
have to,
6.
why didn't you could have phoned it in?
Next
Maybe.
next week is chapter 6 of House of
of
Cards, and along with Witches of Eastwick. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you.